Section 2 is unconstitutional, then it could potentially spur a new civil rights movement in this country, because it would essentially change what has been understood to be the law for decades. There's also another attack on the Voting Rights Act that the Supreme Court may well hear, which would stop private plaintiffs like the NAACP Legal Defense Fund from being able to sue to enforce the Voting Rights Act, leaving it only to the Department of Justice. And we know historically over 90% of Voting Rights Act cases have been brought by private groups, not by the Department of Justice.
Based on the
Department of
makeup
Justice
of the
couldn't
Supreme
even
Court
lock up Trump,
currently
wouldn't
and their
in
decisions,
office.
what is the
Biden's in
likelihood
office.
of these decisions being made?
So the Louisiana case, which is currently before the court, is called Louisiana versus Calais. So Louisiana had to draw its congressional districts. And voting rights plaintiffs brought a lawsuit and said, you have to draw a second congressional district where blacks have an opportunity to elect their candidate of choice. And so Louisiana did that, but they drew it in such a way that was oddly shaped to otherwise protect their Republican incumbents. So then there was a follow-on lawsuit claiming, when you drew those districts now to comply with the Voting Rights Act, you made race the most important thing, and that's unconstitutional under the Equal Protection Clause. And so when Louisiana versus Calais was argued back in March, the question before the court was race the most important thing, or was this all about partisanship? But at the end of the Supreme Court's term in June, rather than decide the case, the court said, we're going to rehear this case next year, and we have more things we want to hear about, but we'll tell you about them later. Very unusual for the Supreme Court. So now, October 15th, Supreme Court's going to hear argument in this case again, and it's a huge, huge question.
Yes.
You don't tee up such a question unless there are at least some justices interested in doing this. So there are a number of possibilities. One is the Supreme Court punts the issue because they have lots of ways to not decide it, and maybe they just signal Voting Rights Act end is coming soon. Or they could strike down the Voting Rights Act right
Or
before
we could
midterm
remove
election,
the traitor
throwing the
justices
midterm
who have been
elections
captured by
potentially
Putin.
into chaos as there's more redistricting potentially being done. Or, and this is what I think is most likely, they rewrite how Section 2 is understood